A big part of the research mission on the International Space Station is designed to find out how human beings respond to being in a weightless environment for an extended period of time, because that's what it will take to complete the planned missions of exploration beyond low Earth orbit. In fact, those trips are going to take more than the 6 months that crew members have been spending on the station so far. So next year, two crew members are launching on the first year-long mission of this program. Veteran station crew members Mikhail Kornienko of Roscosmos and Scott Kelly of NASA have been preparing for this flight for a year already, and they have another year to go before they launch in late March of 2015. I got to spend a few minutes with Scott Kelly yesterday, and I asked him what's different about getting ready for a year in space as compared to 6 months on orbit.
Well, from a training perspective, a lot of it's very similar to what I went through last time, with some exceptions, obviously. The fact that I'll be up there with twice as many people. Some of the training you have to do with your fellow crew members, especially things like the emergency training. I'll have to do not twice as much, but clearly with twice as many people. So there's that. There's training with two different Soyuz commanders that'll add complexity to the training and add content. Most of the station systems stuff is not going to change. I mean, the station is in much the same configuration as it was when I was there last. But being there for twice as long, I'll be doing twice as much science. So from a science training perspective, I should, logically, thinking about this, I should wind up with twice as much.
As you look ahead to that, are there things that you think you can do differently now, knowing you're going to be there for 12 months instead of 6?
I think the fact that I've flown a long-duration flight before gives me a little bit of perspective on what it's like, and understanding that a year is a long time. There are things I will do a little bit differently with regards to pacing myself and how, you wouldn't think this would be true, but you do have to kind of stay entertained over
Sure.
that kind of period, no matter how exciting something is and no matter how beautiful the Earth is. When you're doing it for a year, there is still the factor of trying to keep yourself engaged and interested, so I understand that. And then also, I know what I want to bring this time that, I didn't have last time.
You forget some things the first time?
Yeah, just things to make your life more comfortable and interesting while on board the space station.
The whole point of doing this is to learn more about how the human body responds to being in that environment. What sorts of things are on the agenda for you and Mikhail as you look ahead to being there for 12 months?
From that perspective, about extending the the envelope of expanding the envelope of how long people have been in space and being able to do that, maybe to eventually go to Mars someday. We eventually will. We just we're not sure when that will be. We hope it'll be sooner rather than later. But in those types of experiments, we have certain phenomena that result from long duration spaceflight, bone loss, muscle loss, radiation issues, and currently this new risk we have is the effect on our vision. So a lot of the science that is devoted to Misha and I as crew members are along those kind of lines. Also, your physical performance, your ability to function once you get back on Earth after such a long duration in space.
One of the unique things, pretty neat things actually, about this is that you and your brother Mark volunteered to do some research to take advantage of the fact that you are twins, one in space, one not. Tell me about where that idea came from and what kinds of things you're going to be looking at.
Yeah, it's been somewhat misquoted that this was my idea, and it was not. When I got assigned to this flight, I was being given a briefing to answer some of the science questions that might come up in a press conference. So some of the scientists were there, the program leads for science, and I asked the question, hey, if someone just asks kind of a generic question, will there be any comparative studies between you and your brother? And how should I answer that? And the reason I asked that question is obviously, my brother's a former astronaut, and they've collected NASA, being they have collected data on us since 1995 when they interviewed. A few weeks later, the program science lead, John Charles, came back to me and said, we took your question and we were kind of discussing it, and it actually looks like this might be something that the science community is interested in, especially in the area of genetics. And even though we are what's considered an N of one, we are one sample group, and statistically that is not where
it's not enough to draw conclusions.
Yeah, generally, you can draw very broad conclusions, but you're not going to draw specific conclusions based on a one sample. But there is a lot of interest in what kind of general conclusions we can come to based on this comparative study between my brother and I. But most of it is in this area of genetic research.
When you agreed to this mission, you're getting ready to leave the planet for a full year. You're actually going to be gone from home for longer than that. A lot of people would say, I couldn't possibly do that. What kind of things ran through your mind as you were deciding whether or not to go ahead and to accept this assignment?
I had a desire to fly in space again. I hadn't gotten it out of my system yet with 3 flights. At first you think, well, a year is a long time. But I also felt like, well, maybe flying another 6-month flight would be doing a mission very similar to what I did last time. So even though, the year on one hand might not be very appealing because a year is a long time, on the other hand, it was something different and more challenging than a 6-month flight that after thinking about it for a while, the whole idea of it became very appealing. So, at this point, I'm less than a year out, and I'm pretty excited and feel fortunate to have this opportunity. I mean, there are many people in the astronaut office that would have jumped at this opportunity. I was just, lucky timing, right place, right time to.
We are just inside 1 year until you launch, and you've decided to share that year with the Twitterverse. One tweet a day while you're preparing for this flight. What was it that compelled you to do that?
Well, I was thinking that it would be interesting when I'm in space. I'm not going to go overboard, certainly, but because, my priority is, safety of flight, safety of the hardware, completing the mission objectives. Tweeting is somewhere way, way down on the list. However, I think engaging the public is very important. It's their space program. They have a right to this information, and I feel like we have an obligation to provide it. So I felt like it'd be interesting to do that in space. 140 character message a day. Hey, this is what I'm doing. This is how I'm feeling. Be interesting to compare, day 1 to day 365 from, a personal perspective.
Yeah, your attitude.
Yeah, but so I kind of backed that up a little bit. And I said, well, let me see if I can just kind of get into the habit of doing this, and I'll do it, counting down to the launch and then count up over a year. Not sure if I'm going to be successful doing it every day, but I'm gonna give it a try and see how it goes.
Well, we're all going to keep an eye on that and your preparations as you and Misha get ready for your mission. Thanks very much for talking about it with us. Yeah. NASA astronaut Scott Kelly is now less than 1 year away from spending 1 year in space.